With its applied and interdisciplinary research model, researchers at Royal Roads have often attended to the aspects of equity, diversity, and inclusion that emerged in their research. As our awareness of these aspects grew, so too did our institutional need for growth in the sphere of equity, diversity, and inclusion in research. In 2017, the Canada Research Chairs Program issued a mandate that universities benefiting from that program begin explicitly investigating barriers to inclusion within their research ecosystems. As a part of this program, Royal Roads released its first Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Action Plan, signed the Dimensions Charter of Principles, and received one of the first Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion capacity building grants in Canada. These three strategic initiatives, along with the work of dedicated staff, faculty, and members of the Royal Roads community, led to new resources, training, and positions across the institution. Across disciplines, diverse teams produce more novel, higher impact research. Inclusive governance sustains collaboration and innovation, and accessibility broadens the talent pipeline, enhancing precision and creativity. EDIA is not an ideological add-on. It is an evidence-based driver of excellence in a globally competitive research ecosystem. Dr. Melinda S. Smith. We often talk about equity, diversity, and inclusion in research by looking at where it was missing. For example, the crash test dummies used to assess vehicle safety were modeled on average male bodies. The female crash test dummy, developed decades later, was a scaled-down model of the male average, ignoring differences in knee and hip angles, spinal positioning, and weight distribution. These scaled-down models are still in use in most countries, with an exception in the EU that tests a 5th percentile female dummy, but only in the passenger seat. The pulse oximeters that we use to measure how much oxygen a patient has and needs have overestimated oxygen levels in people with melanated skin, an issue known since the 90s. This issue went unaddressed until the COVID-19 pandemic, where oxygen measurements through melanated skin would overread, delaying or denying treatment for people of color. But we don't have to wait to see what we might have missed to see the benefit of conducting inclusive research. That can be seen while our research is being designed, conducted, and shared. It's in the creation of materials like screen reader accessible consent forms, audio transcriptions for videos, diverse voices in research teams, representation among researchers, and the inclusion of diverse scholarship in our literature and course materials. While we witness conflict in the field and the world of equity, diversity, and inclusion, it remains true that the more people and communities you can involve in and impact with research, the better that research will be, and the further it will reach. Dimensions is one of the leading international programs that promotes equity, diversity, and inclusion in higher education. An interagency initiative between the Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council of Canada, the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada, and the Canadian Institutes of Health Research. It joins award and recognition programs like the Athena Scientific Women's Academic Network in the United Kingdom and Ireland, Science in Australia Gender Equity, and STEM Equity Achievement Change in the United States. Dimensions has three components: a Charter of Principles, which currently has over 150 signatory post-secondary institutions across Canada, a grant program, and a recognition program. The recognition program provides public recognition for institutions committed to achieving increased equity, diversity, and inclusion, and driving deeper cultural change within their research ecosystems. The Charter, which Royal Roads signed in 2019, has 8 principles. Those principles are: 1. That the post-secondary research community has the greatest potential to thrive when members experience equitable, inclusive, and unbiased systems and practices. 2. That to advance institutional equity, diversity, and inclusion, specific, measurable, and sustainable actions are needed to counter systemic barriers, explicit and unconscious biases, and inequities. 3. That institutions require qualitative and quantitative data to measure, monitor, understand, and publicly report on challenges and progress made. 4. That when equity, diversity, and inclusion considerations and practices are integral to research participation, the research itself and research training and learning environments then research excellence, innovation, and creativity are heightened across all disciplines, fields of study, and stages of career development. 5. That to contribute to reconciliation, research with, by, or impacting Indigenous peoples must align with the policies and practices identified through ongoing engagement with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples and organizations. 6. That advancing equity, diversity, and inclusion is a shared responsibility that requires dedicated resources and strong leadership at all levels. Senior leadership demonstrates commitment through public endorsement by ensuring the work involved is resourced and distributed fairly, and by embedding changes in institutional governments and accountability structures. 7. That issues of institutional and individual safety, trust, belonging, privacy, and power differentials must be recognized and proactively addressed. 8. That achieving the objectives of the Dimensions program involves institutional collaboration, transparency, and sharing our challenges, successes, and promising practices. The Dimensions Recognition Program has an unusual design. Institutions apply to join a cohort and, if successful, work with that cohort over a 2-year period in order to develop equity, diversity, and inclusion in research at their institutions. The 2-year period culminates in each institution applying for Dimensions recognition. Think of it like a graduate degree. We apply, work with a cohort for 2 years, and at the end of that, we hope to be a strong candidate for recognition. With this successful application, we joined 16 incredible institutions across the country for our cohort. May of 2025 marked our first month in the cohort. Since then, we have met to introduce our own institutions and to learn about each other. The cohort has also consulted with Dimensions staff at the Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council of Canada as they develop the grant opportunity that will be associated with Dimensions. In the coming months, we will be bringing together a self-assessment team to look at how far we've come since we signed the charter in 2019 and to decide where we want to go next. Our cohort will be able to learn from previous cohort members and successful applicants, University of British Columbia, Mohawk College, Toronto Metropolitan University, and Université Laval, about data collection, engagement strategies, and the development of action plans. If you are interested in learning more or joining the team, reach out. We will be bringing together groups that are interested in engaging our community, mapping our equity, diversity, and inclusion initiatives across the university, looking at data gathering tools, developing a new action plan, and more. Driving equity, diversity, and inclusion is a whole community effort, and we have already come so far. Let's see where we'll go next.